Coronation Street next week, the 28th of July to the 1st of August teases that a storm of grudges, secrets, and unexpected alliances is brewing on the cobblestone streets, as the summer heat gives way to simmering tensions. In the days ahead, every family seems to be on the brink of chaos, with old feuds flaring up again, and new betrayals threatening to tear apart fragile relationships. As the sun sets over the rooftops, Sam and Lily find themselves at the center of a feud deeper than they could have ever imagined. It begins innocuously enough. Lily, determined to make a fresh start after Mick's recent uproar at the local school, pours her creativity into designing an eco-club poster to adorn the notice board. The bright colors and bold lettering proudly proclaim her passion for environmental stewardship, an interest she hopes will win over friends and bolster her confidence after the public humiliation Mick's outburst delivered. But Sam, ever the cynic, can't resist mocking her efforts. He stands before the poster in the corridor, arms folded, and launches into a running commentary about the 6 burglaries that have plagued Weatherfield of late. They are shifting things around, making it look like the place isn't secure, he scoffs. You think your little poster will stop that? Lily's cheeks flush with anger and embarrassment, but she forces a polite grin and retreats to class. That evening, Lily returns home to a scene that chills her to the bone. Chairs are overturned, cushions strewn across the floor, and drawers, once neatly organized, have been rifled through. At first she blames her own forgetfulness, but then recalls Sam's words. 6 thefts, thieves who relocate household items to baffle their victims. A shiver runs down her spine as she realizes the timing cannot be coincidental. Summoning her courage, she dials David, her rock-solid confidant, and recounts the afternoon humiliation followed by this frightening home invasion. David listens, growing more concerned with every detail, and pledges to investigate. Lily's tears are equal parts fear and indignation. She is convinced this is no random break-in, but Sam's calculated act of revenge for the embarrassment she administered earlier that day. Meanwhile, across town, the fragile alliance between Carla and Lisa begins to crack under the weight of competing suspicions about Becky. Carla, uneasy at Becky's sudden disappearance, has taken the bold step of visiting Logan in the high-security wing of Strangeways prison. Logan, once a minor player in Weatherfield's underworld, holds tantalizing tidbits about Becky's recent dealings, though he demands a price for every morsel of information. Carla's heart pounds as she braves the austere visiting room, hoping to glean the truth that could protect her family. She slips Logan a small envelope, nearly swallowed by her shaking hand, and presses him for details. Becky's last known contacts, her likely destination, even the reason she cut ties so abruptly. Logan leans forward, voice low and conspiratorial, but Carla has to leave after 15 tense minutes. She departs with a folder of scrawled notes and a rising sense of dread. The pieces are coming together, but the picture they form is darker than she dared imagine. At the same time, Lisa is conducting her own covert investigation. In the hush of the night, she logs onto Inspector Costello's computer from the precinct's secure terminals, fingers trembling. She knows it's a reckless move, one wrong keystroke, and she could be charged with obstruction of justice, but her maternal instincts override her caution. Becky is her goddaughter, almost a second daughter, and the silence about her sudden disappearance is intolerable. As Lisa navigates the case files, she uncovers a reference to a coded message intercepted by police surveillance, a clue that Becky may be connected to a looming fraud case. Each revelation deepens Lisa's unease, and she worries that Carla's jaunt to the prison may have exposed them both. Will Carla understand Lisa's desperation, or will this secret betrayal tear them apart? Not far from these tangled intrigues, ABI faces her own crisis of faith. News of Kevin's cancer diagnosis reaches her via a brief, tremulous phone call from Tyrone. The words "malignant tumor" hang in the air, heavy and unforgiving. ABI's breath catches in her throat as she processes the weight of this revelation. Kevin, fragile and contrite, admits that he kept the diagnosis from her, afraid of her reaction, or perhaps ashamed of his own mortality. The confession lands like a blow, and ABI's disappointment erupts into fury. She storms into Audrey's salon, hands trembling, and snaps at Carla and Liz as they offer tepid sympathies. Unable to contain her anger, she flees into the arms of Carl, who has been nursing his own heartbreak in solitude. In a moment of confusion and hurt, ABI and Carl share a heated kiss, a rash act that tears at ABI's conscience even as it affirms her worth in Carl's eyes. Kevin, upon hearing of the betrayal, is devastated. His illness had already made him feel powerless, and now he must confront the possibility of losing ABI altogether. He pleads for her forgiveness, his voice cracking with genuine remorse, and promises to be the husband she deserves. But the damage is done. ABI cannot easily erase the memory of Carl's tender embrace, nor can she dismiss the hurt Kevin caused by keeping her in the dark. The couple drifts into an uneasy truce, a marriage held together by threads of guilt and longing rather than love. Carl, emboldened by ABI's momentary vulnerability, believes there might be a future for them. Yet his optimism quickly gives way to bitterness when he discovers ABI's lingering doubts. Hurt and feeling played for a fool, Carl confronts her one evening outside the cabin. "Are we just a rebound?" he demands, eyes blazing with hurt. ABI, caught off guard, stammers an answer that only fuels his anger. In a gesture of self-preservation, Carl declares they must end their liaison before it goes any further. His abrupt departure leaves ABI stranded in guilt and regret. Has she lost both men now? And what revenge might Carl seek for the humiliation he feels? Determined to strike back, Carl concocts a cunning scheme aimed at Kevin's business, his beloved garage. One night, under cover of darkness, Carl sneaks around the rear of the premises and rigs a series of false service orders in the computer system, billing Kevin for expensive parts never installed. By morning, Kevin's accounts will show catastrophic losses, and the staff will be scrambling to explain the phantom expenses. Carl's plan is vicious in its simplicity: attack Kevin where he is weakest, and force him to pay for ABI's betrayal. On another front, Theo's day devolves into disaster. His old trusty van breaks down en route to the viewing of the flat he and partner Ronnie hoped to buy. Stranded on Coronation Street's quiet side lane, he phones Todd in a panic, and together they limp to the townhouse only to face an unexpected hearing at the town's Restorative Justice Center. Theo endures Noah's barbs about favoritism and hypocrisy while Todd tries to mediate, suggesting Danielle, Noah's social worker, as a neutral party. But the atmosphere is explosive. Miles, Theo's teenage son, cannot contain his anger at Todd's earlier interference in his brother's life and lashes out, only for Theo to step between them, taking the punch meant for Todd himself. Blooded and furious, Theo storms out, vowing to protect his family from both legal entanglements and personal betrayals. In the aftermath, Todd receives a sympathetic call from Billy, who urges him to mend fences with Danielle before she bans Theo from seeing the children altogether. But Todd's allegiance to his brother-in-law clashes with his maternal instincts toward the boys, and he remains aloof. When Billy returns to make amends, he finds a frosty reception. Theo refuses to even look at him, and Todd is preoccupied with repairing his shattered relationship with Damian Drew, the local bylaws officer. The tension between loyalty and responsibility threatens to split their friendship irreparably. And finally, Dev's wedding preparations with Bernie and Oddie take an ominous turn. Rani, Dev's formidable aunt, announces her early arrival and insists on auditing the finances herself. Bernie and Oddie, still reeling from a botched robbery meant to fund the ceremony, scramble to conceal their mounting debts. They had planned to dip into the wedding fund to make up for their losses, a gamble that now looms dangerous as Rani paces the drawing room floor, ledgers in hand. Dev, oblivious to the threat, focuses on floral arrangements and seating charts, while Bernie and Oddie trade panicked glances across the table. When Rani demands a breakdown of expenses, their deflated excuses elicit a cold stare that chills them to the bone. "I'll be at the registry office bright and early," she warns. "And I expect everything to balance." As she swoops from room to room with calculating efficiency, Bernie's lip trembles and Oddie's pulse races. Will they manage to pull off this wedding without exposing their lie? Or will their deception come crashing down, ruining not only the celebration, but their reputations as well? With every household on Coronation Street beset by secrets, betrayals and frayed loyalties, it seems only a matter of days before tempers erupt in spectacular fashion. Friendships will fracture, alliances will shift, and in the crucible of July's final week, no one will emerge unscathed. As the cobbles grow slick with impending tears and anger, only one thing is certain: the simmering tensions set to boil over from July 28th to August 1st will leave lasting scars on every corner of Weatherfield. The morning after Rani's stern financial audit, a tense hush settles over the Rose. Bernie and Oddie awake before dawn, hearts pounding at the thought that their deceit might already have been uncovered. In the dank light of the spare room where they've been bunking to avoid prying eyes, they pore over the wedding ledger once more, reworking figures so that every penny can be accounted for, even if it means siphoning off funds meant for the flowers to cover their earlier debts. Bernie's lips quiver as she jots down revised costs. Oddie's knuckles whiten around his pen. They know their window for deception is closing. Dev, meanwhile, has returned home from his early meeting with the caterer, buzzing with optimism. "Everything's on track," he chirps, waving the morning's menu proofs. But the moment he enters the front room and catches sight of Bernie's anxious face, his smile falters. "What's wrong?" he asks, concern knitting his brow. Bernie forces a laugh, but Dev senses the tremor underneath. He crosses to her side, gently pries the ledger from her hands, and his heart sinks as he scans the lines that no longer match what Rani insisted upon. Before he can react, Oddie bursts into the room in a panic, blurting out, There was a problem with the loan, Dev. We thought we'd covered it." Dev's face goes pale. "Tell me exactly what you did," he demands, and Bernie's tears confirm the worst. Their gamble to borrow against the wedding fund has backfired. Across town, in the cozy clutter of Lily's sitting room, David paces restlessly. Lily's accusation that Sam orchestrated the break-in has him torn between fatherly protectiveness and the reality that Sam is a troubled youth with a chip on his shoulder. He taps at his phone, hesitates, then dials Toya. When she answers, bleary from early preparations for the school's Eco Club bake sale, David blurts out, "I need to know if Sam's been at your house this morning." Toya's voice, groggy but curious, replies that Sam was indeed dropped off by Nick around 8, and she and Nick thought it sweet that he wanted to help paint recycled planters. David's heart clenches. Was Sam genuinely trying to make amends? Or is this another layer of Sam's mischief? He thanks her and hangs up, resolve hardening. He needs to confront Sam directly. At the same time, Lily wakes to find Sam waiting on her doorstep, arms folded defensively. His gaze is inscrutable. Lily's pulse races. She had expected threats, not this awkward pause. David arrives behind Sam, his presence stern. "Is this true?" David demands of Sam, voice low. Sam's shoulders slump as he confesses, the break-in wasn't his. Yes, he mocked the poster, but he didn't orchestrate the theft. He had gone to Toya's, then straight home. David glances at Lily, whose eyes are wide with confusion. "So who?" he murmurs. Sam's lips tighten. "Maybe someone noticed me ribbing her and jumped on the idea. Maybe it's someone else with a grudge." His tone suggests relief at clearing his own name, but David senses a deeper unease. There is a third party at work, someone determined to keep the feud alive. Meanwhile, in the dimly lit office of Weatherfield Police, Inspector Costello sits back in his chair as Lisa slips him a sheaf of unauthorized printouts, evidence of her late-night hack. His expression is a mixture of admiration and exasperation. You could face disciplinary action, he warns softly. But this, he taps the documents, this could help. Lisa's relief is palpable. She glances at the files. Becky's name appears alongside a series of coded communications with a small-time jewelry fence. Costello explains that they've been monitoring Becky for suspicion of fencing stolen goods, and if they can link her definitively, they can ensure she faces justice, and maybe rehabilitation. Lisa nods, torn. She wants Becky safe, but this knowledge could also see her imprisoned. Costello hands her a secure envelope. Give this to Carla. She needs the full picture, warts and all. No more secrets. Carla, still reeling from her prison visit with Logan, arrives moments later. Lisa presents the envelope, and Carla's face drains of color as she reads. Logan's scraps had pointed to a personal motive for Becky, an illicit affair gone wrong, but the police papers show a far more serious undercurrent. Becky has been under surveillance for months. Carla's mind reels. Had she been covering for her friend, only to find herself complicit in hiding a criminal? We have to talk to her, Carla whispers. Lisa shakes her head. No. If you confront her, she'll run, and you'll never find her. We need to bring her in ourselves, safely. Carla's fists clench. I can't just handcuff my friend. Lisa's voice softens. Then help us plan a meeting that will allow her to cooperate. You're her best shot at getting the truth out without hurting her. On the other side of the street, ABI stumbles out of the salon, eyes red from an argument with Kevin. The confrontation had escalated when Kevin accused her of not supporting him after the kiss with Carl. ABI's defense, that she was overwhelmed by anger at being kept in the dark about the diagnosis, falls flat. Kevin's exasperation yields to quiet sorrow as he takes her hand. I thought I was protecting you, he murmurs. But ABI pulls away and storms down the path, nearly colliding with Carl, who lingers by the car wash where he'd hoped to impress her with an offer to help. Their eyes meet, and for a heartbeat, all of ABI's guilt rushes back. Carl steps forward, ready to forgive, ready to rebuild. But before he can speak, ABI turns and keeps walking, her resolve to make things right at home pitted against the fear that Kevin will never truly trust her again. Carl watches her go, jaw clenched. Later that afternoon, as Kevin closes up the garage, he notices something odd. The service board shows 2 high-value will alignments performed while he was in surgery, jobs he never authorized. A quick check of the parts inventory reveals missing stock. Panic surges through Kevin, and he calls ABI. It's happening again, he says, voice tight. Someone's bleeding the garage dry. ABI's heart lurches as she realizes Carl's sabotage. She glances toward the Rover's return bus, where Carla and Lisa, their own secrets heavy, are en route to track Becky. In that instant, ABI's priorities crystallize. She must stop Carl before Kevin loses everything. Back at the flat that Theo and Ronnie hope to buy, Todd arrives with fresh coffee for his brother and Theo's son, Miles, who have weathered a tense showdown with Danielle over custodial rights. Danielle has refused to let Theo near the boys until they attend a family mediation session. Theo grips Todd's arm as the phone rings, another summons from restorative justice. That nightmare again? Todd asks. Theo nods, weary. Then Mason, his solicitor, appears at the door. Theo, there's been a complaint lodged by Noel's parents against you for assault. Theo reels. He thought that confrontation with Miles had gone unreported. Now he faces legal peril from every side. Jake's vandalism case, the assault charge, and the looming bankruptcy of his flat purchase after the van breakdown drained his savings. Todd places a hand on his shoulder. We'll fight it, he says, but the resolve in his tone belies deep anxiety. Miles, overhearing the news, bursts into tears. Theo kneels beside him, guilt and frustration warring in his eyes. "I was trying to protect you," he says, voice cracking. Jake's parents, recovering from the damage at their school, want Theo banned from the premises. Danielle's insistence on strict boundaries now seems vindicated. Todd steps in. "Let me talk to Danielle. Maybe we can propose a joint program." Theo mentors Noah under supervision, shows you he's committed. Theo's lip trembles. "I don't know if I can handle another humiliation." Todd's voice is fierce. "You can, and you will." But both know that a misstep could cost Theo not just his freedom, but the trust of his children. Meanwhile, Dev returns home to find Bernie and Oddie huddled in the kitchen. Dev's eyes are icy. "You gambled with my money," he says quietly. Before they can explain, Rani arrives unannounced at the front door. Spotting Dev's stern expression, she steps inside. "I heard there was trouble," she says, voice like steel. Bernie opens her mouth, then shuts it. Rani's gaze sweeps the room. "I want the full breakdown, Bernie. Now." Bernie swallows and begins to speak, but Dev raises a hand. "Please, Rani, let me handle this." Rani's eyes blaze. "No, Dev. I'm family. You owe me honesty." She turns back to Bernie and Oddie, awaiting their confession. The couple exchange a haunted look before admitting that they dipped into the fund to cover the fallout of a failed robbery. A charged silence follows. Then Rani's lips curl. "You will repay every penny," she announces. "And if you can't, you will find yourselves working every spare hour at the factory until the debt is cleared." As August dawns, the cobbles of Coronation Street pulse with the fallout of each household's secret wars. Sam and Lily, confronted by David's intervention, begin to suspect a darker hand at play, one that might unite them if they can unravel the truth. Carla and Lisa, bound by their mutual desire to save Becky, face the moral dilemma of balancing loyalty with the law. ABI races against time to prevent Carl's revenge from destroying Kevin's livelihood, and perhaps her marriage. Theo stands at the crossroads of justice and fatherhood, fighting to prove that love outweighs his mistakes. And Dev, supported by Rani's iron will, must reclaim control of the wedding and the lives of those he loves. In the days ahead, alliances will shift. A truce between Sam and Lily could unearth the real culprit behind the break-ins. Carla and Lisa may find that honesty is the only path to redemption for Becky. ABI may discover that forgiveness requires more than apologies. Theo might learn that strength comes from vulnerability. And Dev will realize that family bonds can weather even the gravest of deceptions, if each member is willing to confront their own wrongdoing.